Welcome to CrossFit Alioth Unleashed podcast, where we discuss health and fitness, mindset and business with your host, Coach Lloyd. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Alioth Unleashed, where we post updates and teasers on our upcoming guests and podcasts. All right. Here we go. We are back for another episode of Alioth Unleashed podcast. Episode 19 today. Usually my guests, they take a little bit of persuasion to try and come on to the podcast, but this time it's not been a problem. He's agreed straight away. He's been looking forward to it. He's even got a fresh fade for today's podcast, and he's come up trumps wearing his Crocs as well. So if you're listening and you want to see his Crocs, then head over to YouTube. Check his Crocs out. We'll put a poll on there whether you like my new Rads or his Crocs, and let's see who wins. But today I do have with me Jakey boy from the gym, Jake Hendry, new member of CrossFit Alioth, which is great. It's good to have you on board there. We're just going to run a podcast today, get to know a bit about Jake, because to be honest, I don't know much about Jake's upbringing and life, to be honest. I just know that he loves CrossFit, he loves programming, loves training. But apart from that, I don't really know him well. So we're going to delve into Jake's past, his upbringing. We're going to go on from that, and then hopefully you guys can understand a bit more about Jake, what makes him tick, what he enjoys doing, and then we'll just go from there, man. So we'll start off with, obviously, you, a quick introduction to the listeners and viewers checking out your Crocs. Just tell us a bit about yourself, mate. Keep it brief, and then we'll go from there.
Easy, thanks for having me. So a bit about my sort of past and who I am as a person. So I grew up in Oz. When I was younger, we moved to New Zealand, spent a bit of time there, lived there for about 5 or 6 years, and then back to Oz for like the rest of my schooling and stuff. So when I was growing up, I was really sporty and active. Looking at me as a kid, you wouldn't have guessed it. I was a bit of a chubby kid. Yeah, I've got a good photo I can actually send you, Monem, if you want to put it up.
We'll do that.
And you can see if you can guess if it's me or not. But yeah, growing up, I was quite sporty and played rugby league. So not rugby union, rugby league from when I was 4 all the way through to when I was 19. So I played for 15 years.
Wow. What's the difference between, because I don't know rugby, what's the difference between the both?
Main difference is between league and union. The game's a lot faster in league. So league has 6 tackles. So in union, it's just sort of unlimited phase, and you just keep going till you lose the ball in the ruck or anything like that. Main difference is rugby league, when you get tackled, you play the ball. So you roll the ball through your legs, hooker or dummy half passes the ball off, and it's a lot faster, so there's no ruck.
I see.
When you get tackled, pretty much the tacklers have to get off you within 5 seconds, and then it gets played and the ball's out straight away. The other main reason that it's a bit faster is because when you're defending in league, you have to be 10 metres behind the play. So you're 10 metres away, which means you've then got to do pretty much a shuttle run, tackle, shuttle run back, shuttle run, tackle. So it's a lot more fitness involved in it, and less, still an element of strength and power, but you'll see rugby league players are a lot more athletic looking and slim compared to like a rugby player who's a big unit. So when I say to people here, oh, I played rugby growing up, they're like, really? You don't look like you did. But it's a bit of a different sport. So
Well, that explains why you're so good at these shuttle runs.
yeah, exactly. So that's where like my sort of passion for fitness was bred, because growing up in league, it's like any sport, right? You have like that classic mentality of just do really hard stuff and like run the hills, or go to the beach in Oz and run sand hills and do laps. And with league, it was always fitness based. It wasn't necessarily much time in the weight room. So now as an athlete, I'm a bit weaker compared to the field, but I'm also a fair bit fitter, or have a higher level of like just base fitness when I started out. But it's like the skills and the strength stuff that stops me. But going back to that, like my upbringing was all I wanted to do was play footy. So I'm the type of person where I get into something and it's just like all in. And I played footy for all through my growing up, like all through school, played with school, with club, with rep teams and stuff like that. And I was always right on the edge of being a representative player, but never quite making it. And then I sort of, after school, went through school as usual, like I said, playing footy, going through school. I was really invested in school until like year 11 and 12. And then I was like, screw it, I don't know what I want to do. Had no idea what I wanted to do when I left school. So when I finished school, I kept playing footy for a couple of years, and I just became a tradesman. So I became an electrician out of school. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I wasn't really passionate about anything apart from footy. And I was like, so in my head, I was like, I'm just going to keep training to become a professional footy player. Every kid's dream, professional sports player. Then I started to realize that that's not really going to work out because I'm not good enough. And a few injuries here and there, dislocated my shoulder 4 times, broke my jaw, broke my cheekbone. Like all these things were just stacking up. And then I sort of said to myself, like, okay, I need to go and make a career. Dived a bit more into being a tradesman and like, all right, I'm going to be an electrician. To be honest, I picked electrician because it was the highest paying one. And I was like, I'm just going to make as much money as I can and set myself up. Yeah. And then 2 years into that, I sort of realized like my apprenticeship was 4 years. And I realized like, I hate this. I was waking up every day. And what I started to fall in love with about footy was the training side of things. I actually really didn't like playing at this age. Like from 17 onwards, so my last 2 or 3 years of footy, I hated playing. I just loved training. And I loved going to training and like smashing myself with hard conditioning and try and be the fittest person in the team and all that sort of hard mental stuff that I could do myself. Because at that age, when boys start to be able to drink and stuff, especially in Oz, that drinking mentality comes into footy. And it's just like the boys are going out on the beers the night before they're playing and then they rock up and they play like crap. And it's like, well, I don't have control over this. So I want to control what I can and just put every effort into what I can do. But then I was getting frustrated. So I was like, stopped playing footy, started just going to the gym. My brother introduced me to just like classic bodybuilding stuff and some HIIT workouts like F45 and stuff here and there. And then I found myself going to work every day from like 5 a.m. till 2 or 3 p.m. as a tradesman. And then straight away I'd go straight to the gym. No matter what, if I just worked 14 hours on my feet, I'd still go straight to the gym because I loved it. And just that sort of personal aspect of like, I can keep myself accountable. It's what I want to do. Like I'm putting in the effort. So if I put in the effort, I'll see the results. It's not dependent on anyone else. So did that. And then when I started to realize like the only thing I'm enjoying in my day is going to the gym after work. I thought, right, I'm going to quit my job and I want to become a personal trainer and coach. So my brother was a coach at the time and he sort of paved the way for me, I guess. I looked up to him a lot and what he was doing and thought like, if I can do that as a job, that's pretty cool. So I literally didn't tell my parents, walked into my work, quit, told my boss to go F himself. And then, because the trade culture is not very kind to apprentices and everyone goes through it, but I didn't appreciate it. And then literally that afternoon after I quit, I drove around to all the gyms in my area and just asked if they had a job doing anything, like clean the floors. I'll do anything. I'll clean the toilets. I don't give a crap what you want me to do. But second gym I walked into was a Virgin Active back home in Australia. And I said to the lady at the desk, like, I just want a job. I'll do anything. She looked me up and down and I had like a full trades uniform on. She's like, what are you talking about? You're obviously a tradesman. I said, well, I've actually just quit. Explained like my passion for it and how I really want to learn. And my plan was, I was pretty straight up. I just want a temporary job for 1 or 2 years while I study. And I just want to be in that environment, like in a gym, because that's all I wanted to do was train. And all I wanted to do was like get better and then see other people around me get better and the impact I had on them as well. So I ended up getting a job at that Virgin Active as a salesperson. And for the next 2 years, I pretty much sold gym memberships to people. So anyone that came into the gym, I would take them around the gym, show them around the gym, explain the membership, how it worked, what it could do to benefit them, like their goals, if they wanted to lose weight, the classes we had. It was all like Virgin Active. So there was a pool, there was open like bodybuilding area, there was like body pump, Les Mills, all that sort of stuff. And one thing that taught me a lot was just to be able to talk to people. Before that, I was quite introverted. Like I said, growing up, I was a little bit of a chubbier kid, and then started to lean out in my teenage years, but it made me very introverted. And then taking that job, like you don't know who's going to come into the gym. You know, like anyone can walk in and say, show me around. They could give you a great conversation, they could give you nothing. So you don't really know. And pretty much for those 2 years, I would work an 8-hour shift, and in my lunch break, I would either train or study. And then after work, I would do whatever I didn't do. So if I trained in my lunch break, I'd study, and then did that for 2 years, got all my qualifications.
What was you studying?
So I did my certificate 3 and 4 in fitness back in Oz, which is like group personal training and then individual personal training. And then I did my strength and conditioning as well on the side. Did that online through uni. So that took a long time to do. Yep. And over those 2 years, it was quite hard because I just wanted to be where I wanted to be. Like I wanted to be a coach. But it sort of taught me that delayed gratification. Like I just need to put in the work now. It took a long time. I did a lot of hours working, and the work I was doing wasn't really doing much apart from feeding me and putting a roof over my head. So from there, like I said before, my brother was in the fitness industry and he was in F45. And when I finished my studies, I didn't really want to become a personal trainer in like a Globo gym. I like the group stuff. And I saw the community aspect that my brother had at F45, and I sort of wanted to do that. Started going to a few classes with him and then ended up getting a job there. After a year or two there, I got sort of poached, I guess, by like a strength and conditioning gym back home. And ended up working there for a couple of years, which was a lot better for me. I enjoyed that because I could put my studies to use a bit more. In an F45, like I'll never knock it. F45 is great, and I think it's a really good method of training for a lot of people. But for me as a coach, I wanted to use my skills a bit more and develop myself as a coach a bit more, using what I'd learned in my S&C and that sort of stuff. So I got the chance to work with like a few upcoming like AFL athletes and just general pop that wanted to train and get better. And similar to like at Alioth, right? Like people aren't just there to tick the box. They're there to like, I want to get a muscle up, or I want to get a stronger back squat or a faster 2K row or whatever it is. So yeah, then just sort of through communication and through interactions and connections in the fitness industry in Sydney, it's quite similar to here. Like you make more connections, you get more opportunities. Yep. So then I started training at another gym in Sydney City with one of my best friends, 98 Riley Street. Super simple strength and conditioning training. And then from there started to bleed into like CrossFit here and there. So then slowly just from F45, S&C training, and then made connections through the CrossFit scene. And then, took my level 1 back home and just started getting more and more into CrossFit. Once I then quit footy. I'd not been playing footy for a couple of years, and I'd just been doing mainly strength and conditioning training myself. I started to get into more CrossFit in like probably 2021, so pretty recent.
I think we can forget sometimes how young Jake is. I don't think you've mentioned it on the podcast, actually.
No, 25.
Yeah, 25. Yeah. So, I mean, when you mentioned apprenticeship before, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think that in general, like you were saying earlier, that you didn't know what you wanted to do when you left school, but I still feel like you sort of found your way pretty early. Like, it's up until recently that I've only just sort of found out what I want to do in life, where I want to go, and I'm like, nearly 10 years older than you. Like I'm 33 now, so I do feel like you've sort of got on the right path early enough for you to, be at a place such as Alioth at such a young age now as well, which is great. Yeah.
I think just on that too, like it's hard when you're young as well to take a risk like that. Like the reason I didn't tell my parents isn't because they would have told me not to. Like they would have told me not to probably, and they would have told me to think about it and just finish my 2 years. And my mum even said to me when I did quit, because obviously I went home that night, didn't have a job, but she did say like, you're not going to have any security now. Like you got to be wary. Like, you might earn more money working as a salesperson now, but in 5 years you could be earning more as an electrician or whatever. And I just said to her, like, I'm not interested in being an electrician, even if I earn more money. I'd rather earn less money and be loving what I'm doing than
for sure
struggling through each day. But like you said, I've been pretty lucky to sort of find what I wanted to do straight on, like early on in life. But I guess I took a risk as well by sort of pursuing it. Yeah. And I think that's, like you said, I haven't been doing it for a very long time, but I feel like people forget that, and people see us as coaches and just think, oh, they were born with dumbbells in their hands. Like, that's not the case, like I was where a lot of our members are or have been, and like I had to learn the skills from scratch. Like there's no difference between me and a member. Like everyone's human, everyone can learn, everyone can grow. Sure. You just got to be willing to put yourself out there as well. So I think like just to finish that off, my story pretty much just grew from that. I then went to a different S&C gym, strength and conditioning based gym. The best way I describe these types of gyms is like it's in between CrossFit and F45. So it's like not F45 where it's just stations and a circuit, but it's not quite CrossFit with the skills and with the weightlifting. And after COVID, we pretty much rebranded and built this brand up called Revel. And then I came over to Dubai with them. And then ended up, I was only meant to come for 6 to 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then, as a lot of the listeners know, I'm with Kaz. Kaz and I are together. So we'd met at Alioth. And then I sort of met a lot of friends here. I'd met Kaz, and it was a big opportunity for me to travel and be out of Australia. We'd just been in a pandemic and lockdown for a year. So I was like, it's the last place I want to be is in Oz. And then a big opportunity to come over here came my way. And I thought, you know what? That wasn't with Revel, it was with a different gym. I thought, you know what? I'm going to take it and see where it takes me. And if you had told me 3 years ago I'd be living in Dubai, coaching at one of the best CrossFit gyms in the world, I wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's usually the case. People usually come over for like a month or two or a year, and then before you know it, 8 or 9 years have passed, which is the case for me at the minute.
Yeah.
But again, like you taking risks, which is great. They've all paid off. I feel like, you know, some people might take risks. They don't pay off. They don't come off, but that's fine. Like you just take another one and another one until, you know, you sort of create your own luck by taking these risks, learning from them. If they don't go your way, I think that's very important. And it's the same with fitness as well, right? It's like when you go to the gym and you're not getting, you know, you might hit a plateau, for example, and you're not getting exactly the results that you're looking for so fast. And, you know, you just got to sort of ground yourself, humble yourself and be like, you know, this is the journey that I'm willing to take. And at some point, like you said earlier, delayed gratification, like you are going to get, you know, work to where you want to be.
Yeah, and I think like people's mindset is a big, and there's a lot of cliches, and you've seen like the sort of mindset space, and especially in social media, and that's been growing over the last couple of years. And there's a lot of things that you hear all the time, but I believe that cliches are cliche for a reason. Like they obviously mean something, you know. Like to me, having a growth mindset is super, super important, no matter what you're trying to do. Yeah. Like you said before, you can take risks and it pays off, sweet. But if you take a risk and it doesn't pay off, that's not a failure. Like you either win or you learn. And like I said, that's a big cliche, but if it doesn't pay off, like, okay, what could I have done different? Like what have I learned from this, you know? And if I didn't walk into that gym, prime example is my story. Like Virgin Active wasn't the first gym I walked into. When I walked out of the first one and got rejected, did I go, oh, screw this, I'm going to go back to being a tradie? No, I just went to the next one and kept trying. But I think people got to have that mindset and want to grow and not just want the outcome. Like you hear it all the time now, like trust the process and enjoy the journey and all this cliche stuff. But it's very true. Like if you're so focused on the outcome of what's going to happen, like if I had 5 years ago thought, I want to be living in Dubai, I want to be working, like there's no way. It's not going to happen, you know. So like true. You got to see where life takes you and what's meant to be will be, but you can sort of persuade that with your own risk taking and with your own choices. So
I think staying on this mindset's pretty cool, because I want to sort of get onto your mindset as well, because I think people see it in the gym, and for such a young chap, I think you've got pretty much a mature head on you. You're pretty level-headed, and you know, even like before when you were speaking about your upbringing and stuff, and your friends would be out, you know, finding that drinking culture, and you wouldn't be interested in that, and you'd be up the morning after doing your, you know, you wanted to be the fittest person on that football team. Like, where did you get that from? Is it just you growing up, or was it something that you learnt yourself, or did it, you know, come from like your mum or your dad or your brother? Like, how did you get that sort of mindset yourself? Because that's sort of continued now as we see in the gym.
Yeah.
But obviously, it started at such a young age.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, to be honest. Like it's when I reflect back on it, because I hear that all the time. Like when like you said before, when I say my age, a lot of people are shocked at my age, but not necessarily because of how I look. It's more so how I act. And like my maturity levels and that sort of thing. But my upbringing, like I have 5 siblings, and I'm the youngest by 9 years.
Wow.
So I'm actually technically an only child. So my mum had 3 kids, my dad had 2, and then they met and had me.
I see.
So they both had previous partners. But when they met, I think the oldest was like 6 or 7, and then I was born a few years later. So being the youngest and being around people that are always older than me, I think matured me a lot quicker. And then, like I said right at the start, when I was about 6, we moved to New Zealand for my dad's job. We were only meant to be there for a year or two, similar to my story here, and then we ended up staying for 4 or 5. But at that age, I was the only one living at home. So my sister was like 16 or 17 when we moved, I think, and she was living out of home. All my other siblings were living out of home. So I was pretty much, like, a lot of my memories growing up as a kid, I was the only person living at home. So it was weird because I had so many siblings. And when I say I've got 5 brothers and sisters, people are like, oh, you got a massive family. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't feel like it. Yeah. And then when we moved, it was just us 3, me, my mum and dad. And when we moved there, my parents actually invested into a restaurant. This is a bit of a side tangent, but they invested into a restaurant. And then 3 or 4 months in, discovered that the head chef and manager were stealing from them. So they were like, screw this. My dad's a bit of a hothead. They were like, screw this. They fired him, and then they were like, well, we've got a fully booked restaurant in the middle of Auckland Harbour. What are we going to do? So my mum took over front of house. She wasn't working at the time. And my dad loved cooking and stuff, so he was like, I'm just going to get the chef to teach me. And he just learnt on the fly. But then for the next 3 or 4 years, they ran the restaurant. We lived in an apartment above the restaurant, and I was on my own 99% of the time. Like, I would come down, I was 7 or 8 years old, I'd walk myself through Auckland City to the bus stop. And that wasn't because my parents were negligent, they were just busy. Yeah. And like, I guess that's sort of bred from, when I reflect on it, it's bred from there. Like, I've always been quite independent. And like, once they showed me how to get to the bus stop once, I could do it myself every day. Like, I would then go after school and just entertain myself. Like, I would go and either kick the footy around in the park with some mates by myself, or I would go down to the wharf and go fishing and stuff like that and just sort of entertain myself. And then at that age, like, I would just sit and watch like Disney Channel and cook myself dinner. And like, looking back on it, I was very independent for such a kid who was like 7 or 8 years old, you know? And then growing up, I started to help in the restaurant because I wanted to do something, I wanted to learn. So I started helping in the restaurant for the next 2 or 3 years. And then a lot of my childhood was like, even though, like I said, I do have a big family, I was spent on my own. So I learned to be independent. I liked that feeling of being independent. And I guess it gives you more power, you know, you're not depending on anyone, and you feel a lot more like capable, I guess. Sure. And then that sort of bled into footy as well. Like I said before, like, I've always been a sporty kid, and I've always been, I just guess it's just born into me. I've always been really competitive. Like, if we're just kicking the footy around, I'll be super competitive. And that sort of bled into CrossFit. And I guess the independence thing and taking on what you can control is I'm a big believer of that, like, control the controllables. And if I can control something that's going to get me towards my goal, then I'll do it. And like, I say this to Kaz all the time, because sometimes I struggle being like empathetic or like feeling certain emotions and stuff like that. Like, I'm very logical as a person. So like, if it's, you've got to get up and you've got to prep your food for the day, and then you'll have food for the day, I'm like, okay, I can do that. But it's like, yeah, of course I'd love an extra half an hour sleep, but I'd also love to feel good at the end of the day that I didn't order McDonald's for lunch, you know? So I don't know, I guess it sort of come from my upbringing, being independent at a young age. And that's definitely, obviously, because I did have siblings when they were around, they're older than me, so I kind of had to act a bit older. Sure. And then when their friends would come around, they're also older. So growing up, and even when I was like 19, 20, a lot of my friends were between 25 and 35. Yeah. And it's like, I guess I've always just been around people a bit older than me, and it's just sort of reflected on me as well. Yeah,
I think I'm pretty much the same. Working in like an old man's club.
Yeah.
You know, being around that sort of banter and the older people with maturer heads.
Yeah.
And I think, like, looking back at like your story, you've been around different sorts of people, right? You've been around like Virgin Active, so like you said before, you don't know who's walked in the door, but you've got to introduce yourself, you've got to make conversation, you've got to say hi, so you're putting yourself in these situations. Then before you know it, that's going to transfer over to making friends in a football team or whatever it might be, and then all of a sudden you're at the restaurant working for your mum and dad's restaurant, and you need to, you know, act a certain way to these people that come into the restaurant. So you have been around sort of different aspects of certain different people, which is great.
Yeah,
and I think you do learn a lot from that as well. Yeah,
I think as well, like, that's not to say that I've always been on a perfect path. Like, when I first finished school, like, it's funny, I don't drink personally, and whenever I say that, people are like, what, you're Australian? Every Australian drinks. I said, yeah, well, I used to, but again, going back to that like logical side of me, I remember me and one of my best mates, I've known him since I was like 6. We would go out when we first turned 18, and we'd go out every Wednesday night, every Friday night, every Saturday night for like 6 months. And I remember one night we'd missed like the last night rider bus home, which was like 3 a.m. And then I remember we had to wait in the city until like 8 a.m., get a bus home with like all school kids going to school. And I was thinking to myself, I'd obviously sobered up by this point.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, why the heck am I doing this? Like, I'm working as a salesperson, not earning great money. And the money I am earning, I'm just pissing out the window by drinking it down the drain. Yeah. And 6 months later, after starting this job, I've got 0 savings. And now, like, I'm just in a rut where I'm getting drunk and I'm hungover and my training's not getting any better and I'm wasting money. And I'm like, you know, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I guess, like, I do have that logical side of me, and I kind of was able to just switch it off. And, like, since then, I barely ever drink. I can't remember the last drink I had. And it's not to say that I don't like people that are drinking, and it's not. And, like, my upbringing as well around alcohol wasn't amazing. So that's also impacted that. So I think that made it a bit easier to say, all right, I don't want to do this anymore.
For sure.
And that's not, like I said, not to say that I think it's bad if people drink, but that's just my side of things. And that's a good point to sort of say, like, you don't know what people's stories are and stuff. So when you hear like, oh, I don't drink, like, people just assume it's because I want to be an athlete. Like, that's not the case. Like, I know it's going to help, but yeah, I think being able to sort of logically think of things is something that I do a lot. But then, like I said, that can be a negative in some spaces, because I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to switch off and enjoy some family time or some downtime and stuff like that. And Kaz has been great for that. Like, when I first moved here, I was very, and I'm sure people have seen in the gym, like, when I'm training and I'm pretty focused. And like you said before, I'm pretty committed to it and mature about it. But it was like my whole life when I moved here, because I'd spent a whole year in COVID, in lockdown. I was living by myself, and I had a rower, a bike erg, and some dumbbells. So I was just training like 2 or 3 times a day. And then coming out of that was like coming out of a cave, like coming to Dubai and like this big city. There was no restrictions, like, and I had to kind of like learn to interact with people again and learn to just not be a robot who trained all the time. And like I said, Kaz has really helped me with that, because now I feel like CrossFit and training and coaching and being an athlete, like, all those things is a huge part of my life, but it's not my life.
It's
like,
great.
And that's a big change that I've felt. Like, if someone was to take CrossFit away from me now, I'd still be Jake Hendry. Whereas before, I'd be like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You know, so like having our own little family with the dogs and having time away and just switching off at the end of each day and having that little family to go home to has been really good for me. And it's really helped like my mindset, and it's also helped me progress in a lot of ways, like as an athlete, as a coach, like being able to, when I'm at work and I'm putting my best foot forward as a coach. When I'm training, and then when I'm home, Like, I have a lot of separation there.
Do you find that easy to come across? Like, do you find it easy just like, because obviously you spend a lot of time in the gym, right? You'll spend hours and hours training, and then you're there again coaching. Do you just find it easy to switch over to from your athlete training brain to your coaching brain? Like, is it just a simple switch, or?
Yeah, like it's been a learning curve, because before I was working at Alioth, like most people know, I was training there, but I was working at a different gym, so it was a lot easier. So like, I have little things and I do a lot of weird physical things that people probably don't notice, but that's like my action of taking my hat off and putting the other hat on. So when I was at a base, my previous gym, just the act of driving to the gym and changing my shirt, I wasn't coaching anymore. Whereas starting at Alioth, it's been a little bit harder to make that separation. But I still try. When I'm at home, I don't do any work at home. So when I'm at home, it's like time for me, it's time for Kaz, time for the dogs, time to just unwind. So I know that if I'm going home, I just relax. If I'm at the gym and I'm on the gym floor, I'm training. If I'm not, or I'm coaching, depending on what I'm doing. But just little things like the shoes I wear. Like if I'm wearing a certain pair of shoes, that means I'm coaching. Like if I'm wearing, and people always tease me because, oh, you're wearing your Crocs. Like that's usually means like I'm just doing admin work or I'm floating around relaxing. And then when I'm on the gym floor and I'm there to train, I'll do certain things. Like I'll get my training shoes. I only ever wear my training shoes if I'm training. If I'm coaching, I don't wear my training shoes. And that's just like my little switch. So I'm like taking my training shoes off. They go in my cubby, and that's training done. Take them out, put them on. That's training starting.
Simple. Just
little things like that. I try not to do any work on the gym floor. If I'm doing work sitting right by the gym floor, it's just uploading programming or anything. Anything creative's like either at a cafe or upstairs in the office or something, just to separate it. I think for me, to answer your question, it's more physically separating things. Because I find like when I first got into coaching and training and all that sort of stuff, like I'd try and do it whenever I had a spare minute. Like I'd just pull my laptop out, start programming or coaching. Like it would just be all in one place, but having it separated physically is a lot easier for me. Yeah.
I kind of like the ladies' time where we're actually, we're being made to leave the gym 9 to 11, and it gets me out. I'm going to Cafe Rider usually, and that's where I'm doing my work. I love
cheeky
that.
plug for
2
Cafe
hours,
Rider.
exactly. I love that. I just love those 2 hours, like you said. You get out of the gym, and you just know it's like work brain is on, whether it's programming, whether it's your little side hustle that you got going on, whatever it might be. You just know that you're out of the gym and it's just time to work. What do you take the most from out of coaching? Like coaching people, like what do you take from it the most? What do you enjoy about it so much?
I think it depends on the coaching you're doing, right? Like for me, I don't do a ton of PT. I do a fair bit, but I do PT mainly with people that really have a certain goal or are really driven towards a certain thing, whether that's just getting a bar muscle up or whether that's I just want to feel fitter and healthier. It can be broad, it can be specific, but when I do PT, I usually only do that with people that are really, number one, I get along with because I don't want it to be a drag for them and I don't want it to be a drag for me. Then number two, that they have a specific thing we can work towards so it's not getting stagnant. And I'm very goal oriented, and even though it's very important to work on the journey of it as well, it's good to have that end in mind. But for the classes, I really enjoy seeing people that are invested in getting better. And like there's days where you get up to go to work and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like everyone has those days. It's a choice for every single person to come to the gym, especially to say like 5:30 a.m. Those guys probably don't start work till like 8. They could easily sleep till 7, but they're getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, coming to the gym to get themselves better. Whether that getting themselves better means they're squatting 200 kilos or 20 kilos, doesn't matter. Like the investment that they put in is huge mentally, and whether they realize it or not, it might not be a big deal to them, and it might not be a big deal to us sometimes because we just see so many people do it. But I think we can easily take that for granted, that people are taking an hour out of their day to come to the gym, get better, whether that's feel better, look better, whatever it is. I think that passion for getting better is something that's quite unique to people that train and people that do CrossFit. And to me, that's the most rewarding. Like when people ask questions and they're invested, and being in a community like Alioth where people are actually bought in, they want to know why they're doing things and stuff like that. I much prefer being in an environment like that where they care, and it challenges us as a coach so that we're not being complacent and we're not just going through the motions. We know we have to be on our game because they're trying to get better, But yeah, to answer your question, I think just helping people get better, and again, it's so cliche, but seeing people get better, whether it's a tangible thing like, oh, they got their bar muscle up or they squatted 100 kilos, or even like recently that video with Sam came out for Hero of the Month. Like that's a very long journey that he's been on. And like I've been a very, very small part of it. But to see that is like super inspiring, to see that not so long ago he couldn't even do a push-up.
Yeah.
And now he's like smashing out workouts with handstand push-ups and burpees and
ring muscle-ups.
Yeah, ring muscle-ups and cleaning over 100 kilos. Like that's impressive. And to me, it doesn't matter whether you're an athlete who's competing at the highest level or whether you've someone like Sam who's gone from that position that he was in to where he is now. Like to me, that's even more impressive.
Yeah,
So that's like super inspiring to me, and to see that people want to keep getting better and keep coming back, like that's what keeps me engaged for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And what's the one thing that you like the most about training yourself? Because you do a lot of it, we know that. So what do you enjoy so much about training? Like, what makes you get up in the morning and, you know, spend all that time in the gym training yourself and working towards your goals? Like, why do you do that? Why do you enjoy it so much?
Yeah, and I think, again, it's a similar note, I guess, because like anything, it becomes addictive when you see the like results, right? Like, and it's not necessarily like, oh, I feel so much stronger today than I did yesterday. But being able to look at myself, even now, since when I moved and started training at Alioth, like I'm a lot better in a lot of ways. And just looking back and having that, and it's something that I need to do a bit more, and being a bit more, not easier on myself, but not being so, because this is the thing, right? Like as soon as people get results, they sort of forget where they were and they forget how far they've come. And they're just like, oh, I just want the next thing. Like, oh, I want to squat 100 kilos. They get there, they're like, okay, sweet, 120. And it's like, well, hold on. Like, you're never going to be satisfied. So make sure you enjoy it along the way, and make sure that, like, to me, it's not necessarily about the results that I get. Like, if I get to my goals as an athlete, that's great. But having that thing every day where you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm excited because I get to go and try and get a bit better. Like, some days you'll have a great day. Other days you'll have a crap day. And just knowing that like progress isn't linear, I feel like it teaches you a lot of life lessons as well, because I relate life a lot to training. Like some days you go into the gym, it feels great, you strike with an iron's hot, you get a PB, you feel great. 2 days later, you feel like crap. You can't hit anywhere near what you hit in the other day. And it's just like life, right? Like you could be on cloud 9 having the best day of your life, and then 2 days later something comes in, you've got this unexpected expense that stresses you financially, or something happens in your family and it's a bit of a downtime. Like you've got to be able to handle those ups and downs. And I think for me, the two main things are that, like what the lessons it teaches you for life and how to handle that, but then also like the main thing for me is like how I can show up every day and tangibly see that I'm getting a bit better and a bit better and a bit better. But I think it's important to reflect on that too and not be so hard on yourself. Like, I've got tattooed on my leg, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think that's a big thing, whether that's comparing to someone else or what you want, what you see someone else doing. Like, just focus on you and whether you're getting better and whether you're making steps towards what you want to make steps towards. And better is subjective, right? Like if you want to, your definition of better is up to you. So I think that's pretty cool, as long as people can keep that sort of internal motivation and not be motivated by externally. And I think that's what training does for me. Like, it's hard in CrossFit too, because obviously Instagram's a highlight reel and you see such and such snatching 140 kilos and you can't even snatch 100. But it's like, it's okay, it's part of the journey and everyone's at different stages.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I like that. So now you've basically found yourself exactly where you are now. So you've obviously repping the Alioth t-shirt today, which is great. But, you know, you've made all these risks in life, and it's brought you to Dubai, and, you know, you're now settled, if you will, with obviously Kaz, the dogs. Life's pretty sweet for you now. Yeah. You're happy, and you've literally been at Alioth for how long now?
It's like a month.
Yeah, like
just under a month.
Just under a month at Alioth. So you've pretty much found your feet pretty quickly, because like you said, you know, you've been in and around the gym, you've trained, you've been obviously with Kaz for a long time now. So people know you around the gym, you've settled in pretty well, which is good to see. How are you finding it?
Yeah, good, really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've really appreciated like how not only the staff but the members have really accepted me. And like you said, I've been a part of the community for a while, and I've helped out at past events like Assemble and internal comps and stuff we've run, Heat Wave and stuff like that. And it wasn't ever to try and get a job at Alioth. It was just genuinely because I appreciated the community. Like, I've done open workouts, quarterfinal workouts there, qualifiers, and members would cheer you on. Members would shoot me a message on Instagram, oh, this is super inspiring and all that sort of stuff. And it's cool to be such a part, like what I would say is a bigger part now as a coach of a community that cares so much and is super accepting. And I think for me, like, being at base was great. I had a great community. It was more down the strength and conditioning route, which is more my roots of coaching. So I enjoyed that. But then I'm probably more passionate about the CrossFit side of things. And the CrossFit community at Alioth is really strong. People really care. And it's been really fun to be able to like program for a community that really wants to develop the skills and stuff of CrossFit. But yeah, I think it's been really good for Kaz and I as well. Like we obviously had the chat of working together, and initially I remember, I don't know if she remembers this, but I remember when I first moved here and like we'd been dating for like 3 months. I was like, oh, I'd be sick to work at Alioth. It's such a sick gym. Like, I wish I could work there. She's like, no, I'd never want you to work with me. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when like the opportunity came up, we had to chat, and it was a completely different response. Yeah. But I think it's been good for us too, because we get to see each other more, and I'm proud of us because we are still able to separate work and home. And like even this morning, I got to go home after run club and have brekkie with her and the dogs and hang out. And nice. That's something we're really lucky with the job we have. Like we're pretty flexible on time. So yeah, to answer your question, it's been pretty good. I've been loving settling in, and I think we've got some exciting times coming up with the Open and stuff as well, which has been good.
For sure, mate, for sure. Like you just touched upon then, but you are heavily involved with the programming side of things now with Alioth. Obviously, all the coaches help out as well, but you're sort of taking the main lead on that side of things. Not because you was forced through it, but it's because it's something that obviously you love to do. Yeah. You know, you've obviously taken over from Kaz's role doing the programming, which she enjoyed doing, but obviously you have a passion for the programming side of things and the CrossFit side of things, which, I mean, that's your job, and that's fine. Yeah. I wouldn't have got that role, but you know, I've done that before. It's just hard work. It's hard to please everyone, right? But you do a very good job of it. How did that come about? Like, why are you so involved with programming at the minute, like for individuals and CrossFit Alioth?
Yeah, I think as a coach, I do enjoy coaching something that I've had a hand in and that I genuinely believe in, whether that means that I've written the whole thing or whether that means, like you said, we collaborate. And for anyone who doesn't know, like with the programming, obviously lead, but then each week we'll collaborate as a team. And I think that's something I really, really enjoy, because like many minds are greater than one. So if we can communicate and sort of relay different ideas or like speed bumps that we might run into, or things I didn't think about, that's really cool. And I really enjoy doing that with people. But as far as the programming side of things go, I guess I'm just a bit of a nerd of the sport. Like most people, if you know me, you know that I'll be able to talk to you about the sport of CrossFit and workouts and programming. And like I said at the start, I guess that relays back to me as a person being quite a logical person. And I think I love to be able to make sense of why I'm doing something. So in terms of like strength programming, like having it periodized and planned and progressive is really important. And same with like gymnastics and that sort of thing. And then growing up, I was actually also quite into like art. I used to draw a fair bit and do art competitions and stuff when I was a kid. And I think the conditioning side of programming is almost like my art time. Like it's where I can be creative and have my creative side as well. So I really enjoy that. And it's really cool as a coach to see, like when you coach people through something and you've had a hand in them doing it and they really enjoy it and they love it. Like I love that side of things. And that's on a class scale as well. But then obviously I work with a lot of individuals as well. So helping them get better and helping them realize what I've realized in terms of getting better in the sport. And again, relates back to why I love coaching, right? Like people want to get better and I want to help them do that. If that means that they don't need me to PT them, but they need me to help write some progressions on bar muscle ups or give them some tips on their snatch or whatever it is, then that's what I'd love to do. And I think the main thing as a programmer is to never think that you know everything. And that's why I really enjoy working with the team and seeing what most of the accounts I follow on Instagram are either coaches or competitions or something related to programming, so that I can just get inspiration. Like if any programmer out there, especially for CrossFit, thinks they're original, they're not. Like you don't own thrusters and burpees, you know? But getting inspiration from other people, seeing why they're doing things. And I'm a big component of that. Like you should know why you're doing things. That's why like obviously introducing like the videos for each week, session intentions and stuff. It's very easy to just blindly work through a workout. But if you know why you're doing things, people are going to be way more invested. Like we'll be more invested coaching it. People will be more invested doing it. And then if you're more invested, you're going to enjoy it more. Sure. And you're going to get better results out of it. So yeah, I guess my passion for programming just sort of came from wanting to have a bit more of a hand in what I was coaching. And I think that if I reflect, did come back to F45. That's the one thing I didn't like about it, was that I just felt like I was a cheerleader. And that wasn't because of I'm not saying that every F45 coach is bad. I just felt like I would like to have more. Like if someone was like, why are we doing this exercise? I couldn't tell them why, and like as a person, I was thinking, if I was paying X amount of money to train here and the coach couldn't even tell me why I'm doing something, like there's no evidence to back things up, you know what I mean? So I was just a bit more, wanted to know a bit more and wanted to give people a direct answer that they could actually be invested in. Yeah. So
I think it puts you in a difficult spot, right? So if you're at F45 and someone asks you a question that you literally don't know the answer to, not because of yourself, but because of the company you're working for, and it has no methodology or whatever it might be, and you don't know the answer, then it can just come across a bit embarrassing, can't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a situation that we don't want to find ourselves in at all.
Yeah, exactly right. And like the thing with programming is like there's so many. I don't like the term someone's good or bad at programming. It's just everyone has different ways of doing things, right? Like I think of programming is more like cooking than baking. Like baking, you need to follow an exact recipe, and if you put 2 tablespoons of flour instead of 1, you're screwed. Yeah. Whereas with cooking, like you can cook a pasta and put a bit of this, bit of that, bit of your own flavor in there, and it turns out to be great. Someone else could do the same thing, and it turns out to be great. Yeah. So it's like you've got to have that mindset, and you've got to have such an open mind when programming. And I think that's another reason why I love it, because it keeps me having an open mind. Like if someone says, why don't we do this instead of that? I'm not going to shut it down. I could just say, well, this is why I was thinking of doing this. Why were you thinking of doing that? Yeah. And just sort of having a discussion around it, because any programming can be good programming as long as it has a reason. So as you can tell, I could probably ramble about programming for hours, but yeah,
it's good. So now you've sort of found your feet at CrossFit Alioth. What's sort of the focus now? Now you're here, your feet are settled. Obviously you're enjoying where you're at. With regards to training, with regards to work, with regards to relationships, whatever it might be. What's your focus now at this present time?
Yeah, I think to go off of that conversation we were just having, like keep developing the programming, keep upskilling the coaches, but not only the coaches, the athletes we have in the gym and the members we have in the gym, teaching them things. Like I think people should be learning as they're going. People should be able to leave Alioth and think like, oh, I learnt this, this, and this, not just, oh, I did really good programming, but now I'm not there, I don't know anything. So really trying to teach and upskill the members and get them more invested with things like videos and on the floor coaching, and giving, as coaches, I want us to make sure we're doing this, and that sort of stuff is really important to me. And the programming is a big, big focus for me, because that's obviously how it's delivered is super important as well. But I think having the right canvas to build off with the programming is super important. So that's something I put a lot of time into. Yeah. And then focus on growing Dark Horse, which we've got a few exciting things coming up with that, and a bit of a restructuring of how that's going to work. So they're 2 of my big main focuses. And then also picking up people who want to, like I said before, anyone who wants to do like PT and work on certain skills going towards the open and that sort of thing, I'm always open to. And then introducing a bit more of a help with stuff outside of the gym. So obviously you can train your ass off, but if you're not looking after how you eat and sleep and your lifestyle, it might not be reflecting as much as you want it to. Yeah. So I'm also a nutrition coach as well, so helping people with their nutrition and making that a bit more seamless, because everyone knows now that nutrition is super important, but there's 1,000,001 different things out there. Do this, don't do that. Eggs are bad for you, meat's bad for you. Yeah. Spinach is bad for you. There's an article saying everything's bad for you. So like learning what the right approach is for you and how that works is something that's super important for people to go through, especially this time of year, the holiday season. Everyone's like, oh, it's Christmas, so it's a write-off, I'm going to get fat. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. You can easily navigate it and still live your life. Like you should be, whatever you're doing for today, you should be able to do every day forever. Yeah. So if it's not sustainable or you're not doing something in the right fashion, you can always change that. And I'd love to help a few more people with their nutrition goals and stuff like that. It's another low-hanging fruit for a lot of people. A lot of people work their butt off in the gym, but they're not necessarily looking after what's going on outside the gym. They're sleeping 2 hours a night, super stressful job, don't take time out for themselves, all those sorts of things. So helping give advice to members and people in the gym on what to do with those sort of things, and just giving you like 1 or 2 things to take home and try and see if it works for you. But yeah, I guess nutrition, introducing that to the gym, the programming, obviously, PT and coaching and stuff, and then obviously running and preparing people for High Rocks is a big thing as well with a hybrid program. So we have those sessions every Sunday. And I've also got the Dark Horse hybrid program as well. So I've got a fair bit on my plate, but it's good. I like to have a bit of variety in what I do, because then I don't get stale doing one thing, you know.
I totally resonate with that.
Yeah, so they're my main focuses, but I'm sure there'll be more that pop up, and obviously preparing everyone for the Open in about 12 weeks will be good fun as well.
Yeah, it's always a fun time, the Open around the gym. I do feel like coaching now is taken, like a turn of events, because if I was to look back, back in the day when I used to work for a Virgin Active, for example, like they'd come in for an hour, I'd PT him, and then I'd see him again the week after. I wouldn't even talk to them, wouldn't even have any sort of communication with them. Yeah. And I feel like now coaches, personal trainers have much more of a responsibility to clients when it becomes, when it comes down to the lifestyle. Like, that's what I like about CrossFit. It's not just changing the fitness; it's a lifestyle change, right? So my clients, like when they come in, it's like, okay, like you've got goals, but I just want you to change your lifestyle. I want you to look back in the year and just be like, wow, I didn't think I'd be in this sort of situation right now. Yeah. So I do feel like, nutrition has a part to play, where it's the mental health side of things, whether it's helping them, just get over a little stumbling block in the daily life, just being that person for them and actually having communication inside and outside the gym is very important. And I think for me, that's what I enjoy the most. Like you said as well, like I don't just work with anyone, I work with people that I like to work with. Clients are friends now. I mean, very invested in them, and I do literally get onto them every day. I'm texting them left, right, and centre, making sure that they're, getting up, doing the walk, and walking their dogs in the morning, even though they're not in the gym. So I do feel like coaches at Alioth are very good at doing that. Yeah, which I think sets us apart a little bit. Yeah, definitely. I think if you see coaching as like, I've just got to coach these 2 classes and then I'm out of here, like following up with people, messaging people here and there is awesome. And then just telling people, like, and getting them to recognize that if you train, even if you train 2 hours a day, so if you train 1 hour a day, every day, that's a lot, right? Usually people take a day off, but say you train every day, that's 7 hours in 168 hours in your week. It's literally 4% of your week. So even if you're flogging yourself in the gym, going as hard as you can, what you're doing for the other 96% of the time is arguably more important. For sure. Like, depending on your goal, obviously, like strength and all that sort of stuff, you need to train to get better, but then you also need to rest, you need to sleep, you need to make sure that you're switching off and having some downtime, you need to make sure you're eating enough. And I think, like I said, there's so many conflicting things out there with nutrition. There's also like, I call it like the grind set, like you just need to go harder, go harder, go harder. Like, I don't believe in that. I think having a good balance in life and being able to do it consistently for a long period of time is what's going to get the results. Yeah. Like, I've been through periods where, and I'm sure you saw when I first came, I was training like 5 or 6 hours a day. I was doing like 3 sessions, just workout after workout after workout, and I was so burnt out. I was underfueled. I wasn't sleeping properly. I had low testosterone, all these things. And it's like, okay, pull it back a bit, still train, but have a bit more of a balance, have a life, eat well, sleep enough, enjoy yourself, don't be super restrictive. And at the end of the day, if you're doing all those things and you have a good balance, then you're going to get your results. But like you said, I think that's a super important part of coaching that has definitely grown in the CrossFit space. But like you said, I think at Alioth, we're a lot more bought into that sort of aspect of coaching. It's not just all about the class and the program we're doing. Yeah, agreed. Just going that extra mile for your clients, right? And your members. Exactly right. So that's the Jake now. What does the future Jake what is the future Jake? What do you have in your mind? Like, there must be a lot going on. But where do you see yourself going in down the line, maybe, within a few years at Alioth? What would you want to see your role at Alioth be, or past Alioth? Maybe some business ventures. I don't know. What's the future Jake involved? Yeah, I think this is somewhere where I struggle sometimes a little bit, because I think I try so hard sometimes to be where my feet are and just not project too far in the future and just worry about what's happening now. And like I said before, if you had told me 3 years ago I'd be living in Dubai coaching at CrossFit Alioth, I'd tell you you're a joker. Yep. But I think for me down the line, I always want to have sort of a touch on coaching. I don't think I'd ever want to be fully online. Down the line, I think in years to come, Kaz and I will eventually move back to Sweden. And I'd love to have my own business online, but then also coach in person. And then as far as while we're in Dubai and at Alioth, I really just want to continue to grow the community and be a big part of that, and sort of be
Alioth be known as the gym and the place and the community and the culture to be at if you're in the Middle East, like the go-to for CrossFit in the Middle East. And that's my main goal, whether that's through growing the programming, through helping the coaches grow, helping the members grow, that sort of stuff, and being like a one-stop shop for CrossFit and just health and fitness in general, like we just spoke about, not necessarily just getting people muscle ups, but also getting people better like quality of living and all that sort of stuff, being the place to be in the Middle East. And I think I'd always like to have a touch with CrossFit Alioth down the line.
For sure.
But yeah, I think long-term plans, whenever we're ready to settle down, it will be in the freezing cold of Sweden. But
Mate, I'm not jealous one bit.
yeah, but I think one thing that COVID taught me, when I was in COVID, I was just programming because obviously none of the gyms were open. And I didn't realize until I moved here and started coaching in person how much I missed coaching in person. I used to, and I'll admit that I used to kind of see coaching in person as a bit of a chore. I was also coaching like 30 plus classes a week back home. But I used to see it as a bit of a chore and get a bit complacent. And then that time in COVID made me realize like I really enjoy the touch of coaching in person, not just writing workouts. So I'll definitely always want to be coaching in some degree down the line, but I don't have a definitive answer for you.
That's nice, man. We'll finish off with maybe a piece of advice that you'd like to give our listeners or viewers. Like, if it was one piece of advice you'd like to give someone with your level, mature head on, what would it be?
I'll give you two.
No, just one.
Two.
Go on, give us two.
So I've touched on both already, but number one would be comparison's the thief of joy. These are two of my favorite sayings or things. So comparison is the thief of joy, just meaning like focus on yourself, decide what's most important to you, and work towards that thing, multiple things, whatever it is. And then the second one sort of comes off that is control what you can to get better, like, or to get towards your better, whatever your better is, doesn't matter what it is. Make sure you decide not comparing to anyone, whatever everyone else's better is, decide what your better is for you. And then how can you control in everyday life or once a week or whenever it is consistently that you're getting more towards that. Like if that means, okay, I want to be a bit fitter and healthier, that means I might have to eat a bit better. Okay, meal prep every week or get on a meal plan. Like how can you control that? Don't just leave it up to chance. And then the reason I like both of those things is if you're not comparing to anyone else and you genuinely are focused on yourself and what you want to do, then you're going to be happy if you achieve that. And you're going to find, like I said at the start, you're not going to be satisfied. You're going to find something else, and then you're going to go down another path. But you're going to be very proud of yourself for achieving that thing because it's what you wanted to achieve.
Sure.
But then if you control everything you can and you know that you get to this point and you haven't achieved it, at least you can look back and say, you know what, I did everything I could. Like I controlled everything I could, every little thing, but it just didn't happen. I need to give it more time, or maybe I want a different goal now. At least you can have that gratification of like, I gave it all I could, and you don't have any regrets.
I like that. Is that something easy for you to do? Like when you say like only control the stuff that you can control, and is that something you just find easy to do, or is it something that you write down, you journal about,
No,
or
like
is it just something that comes like second nature?
I think for me, I've never been a big journaler or writing things down or that sort of thing. I think I'm a bit more, for me, it's having the right people around me to keep me on that and that keep me honest. And I think that's a good point that you bring up. Like, it's easy for me to sit here and say, control what you can and don't compare to anyone else, because I'm not going to lie, there's definitely been times where going on social media, I've been like, oh, damn, that guy's jacked, or that guy's snatching way more than me, or he can do way more muscle-ups than me, or whatever. Yeah. But having the mindset to be able to at least recognize that is a place to start. And like I said, I'm human. Like everyone compares, but try and minimize it and try and at least be aware of it. Like, okay, what can I do to not compare? Do I spend a bit less time on social media? Or do I need to write my goals on a whiteboard? Or like I have one thing that's physical that I do have is I have a whiteboard next to my bed.
You know what? I've just put up one.
Oh, yeah?
I've got a massive whiteboard in my spare room now, and I love it. I was on it the other night, putting all my goals down, all my ideas.
It's good. Like I have certain little things that I do every day. So I have a whiteboard next to my bed with important things that I've got that I'm working towards, whether it's a competition or whatever it is. And I'll have like a countdown with the days. So then every day before I go to bed, I change the day and I know like, all right, it's getting closer. Am I doing what I have been? And then I have a tally mark, which I'll explain in a second. But the other thing I have is notes on my phone. I have a daily tracker. And I have nutrition, mindset, training, interaction, and sleep. So I have 5 things on there in a table. And then at the end of each day, I go and tick it or cross it. And they each have like markers I've got to hit. So training, did I do all my training? Did I give it my best for that day? Doesn't mean I had to hit PRs. Like if you had nothing in the tank, did you still give it the best you had? Yep, sweet. Nutrition, did I stick to my like calories or macros, or did I stick to what I'm currently sticking to with nutrition at that time? Sweet. Did I have genuine interactions with people? This one's a bit more subjective. Like, did I spend a bit of time with Kaz? Did we have a bit of just us time? And then did I have a bit of alone time? 5 minutes just to sit by myself. Sleep, did I sleep for over 7 hours, or was I in bed for over 7 hours? And I have all these ticks, and then every day at the end of the day, I'll tick them off. So then when I look back, I can see how many ticks compared to crosses I've got.
Yeah.
And then if in a week I have 3 or less crosses, I mark a tally up on my whiteboard, and that tally's, okay, that was a good week.
Yeah.
And the next one, good week. And at the moment, like after a period of time, you have 12, 13, 14, 20 ticks, or tally marks, sorry. And you've realized like, oh, look, I'm actually putting in the work. And that's sort of a reminder for me every day, seeing that whiteboard next to my bed. I guess they're not things I necessarily think about anymore, but if I was to be asked like I was just then, I realized like, okay, I do track it a bit. And
Yeah, you
sort
do.
of a bit more cognizant of it.
Because when I said do your journal, you was like, no, I don't write things down, but you definitely do.
Yeah, but that's like my version of journaling.
Yeah.
And I think being aware of things like that doesn't mean you need to sit down and go do your diary.
No.
Like if that works for you, sweet. But it doesn't work for me. I just find that
Get a whiteboard.
get a whiteboard, get something, use notes on your phone, do something, just to sort of see that you're putting in the effort. And no one wants to break a streak. Like when you start it, you're like, I'm going to keep this going. Yeah. And just start small. Like when I started that tally thing, I started with just sleep. Okay, I'm going to do sleep. And then when I get really good at that, I'm going to do nutrition. Then when I get really good at that, add another one. Nice. And just sort of build up that momentum. But it's definitely, I don't want people to think that we're superhuman as coaches. Like there's days that I miss. There's days that we went away for our anniversary a couple of weeks ago and I didn't put a tick mark on anything because I just switched off and had some time for us. Yeah. And there's other days where like I'll really struggle to not compare to other people and make sure that I am controlling what I can and that sort of thing. But we're all human, so you got to recognize that.
Yeah, it's having these exercises to like sort of bring you back down to earth, right? Because like you said, we're all going to compare ourselves, and I do it as well. But then it's how quick can you just switch it off again and then focus on yourself? You know, recognize it, use it as fuel maybe, and then just be humble and focus on you.
A good analogy I think of for it is like, it's like when you go bowling, right? You want to have your version of the gutters up. So like you might not get a strike every time, but at least you hit a couple pins if you've got the gutters up. So what are your gutters up? Yeah. Like for me, it's those things I was just saying, like the ticks and the whiteboard and that sort of thing. Figure out what your gutters look like and get them up.
Love it. I think that's a good note to finish on, mate.
Sweet.
Thanks for coming on my podcast.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time. A big thank you to our main podcast sponsor, Practical, for supplying guests with some tasty snacks, and you guys for watching on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe and let us know what you think by dropping a message in the comment section below.